What's up, folks? Welcome back to the Supplement Copywriting channel. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the 5 types of advertorials you should use to scale an ecom brand. Now, in previous videos, I've dove into breaking down advertorials, explaining why I think they work so effectively, and I've even given you a mini template to use. But one of the things that I recognize that I haven't quite covered is going really in depth and breaking down the different types of advertorials that you can use. And this is a really important thing to understand, because you can have a phenomenal idea for your product, but if you apply it to the wrong type of advertorial that doesn't resonate with your audience or isn't usually a good fit for that niche, then it could end up bombing, when in reality you had a banger idea that if you just used the right type of advertorial, it would have scaled really effectively. So my goal with this video is to break them down for you, show you some headlines from them, when to use them, what types of niches they typically perform well in, and then also to show you the hardest type of advertorial to write, which also happens to be the most profitable, the easiest type of advertorial to write, and make sure you stick around until the end. I'm going to share my least favorite kind of advertorial that I don't think anybody should be using, but tons of companies still do. So let's go ahead and hop into the meat and potatoes for today's video. Now, first, we are going to do a quick recap on why to use advertorials. Now, one of the most important things is that they really educate and pre-sell the reader. So it's a great way to sell people without feeling overly salesy, because usually the typical rule in advertorials, and this isn't like a hard and fast rule, is it's 70% education, 30% selling. And so one of the things that advertorials also do very effectively is they move people up the buying ladder. So what I mean by that is, if somebody's really, really cold and they click on an ad and they read advertorial, they might not buy right away, but it does a greater job of warming them up to the idea without putting them off with super hardcore direct response that turns the knife and makes them feel like shit. So it does a great job of moving people up the buying ladder without turning them off if they don't buy. It can also lower the cost of acquisition on cold traffic by upwards of 20%. And it also helps to increase the conversion rates. This is what I think probably one of the more important points these days, is that it's easier to write and split test advertorials than traditional text sales letters and long form video sales letters. So a lot of companies aren't going to have the capital to go ahead and hire an A-list copywriter. And that's really what you need these days to have a VSL perform on cold traffic. Is there can be no flaws in the VSL. The copywriting script needs to be unbelievably tight. So for a lot of companies that don't have the capital to keep an A-list copywriter on staff, advertorials are a great option to have a great way to split test a bunch of ideas and angles and different types of advertorials to see what resonates with your audience. And they're just way easier to write than a long form text sales letter or a video sales letter. So easier to write, which means you can get them out and you can split test them significantly quicker. But that doesn't really answer the question of like, what kind of advertorial should you be using? So that's what we're going to be going over today, the 5 types of advertorials. And the reason for it is because understanding these types of advertorials will allow you to choose the right kind for your brand. Now, not every type of advertorial is going to apply to every brand. There are going to be some that are probably going to be more effective in your niche. So that's a part of what we're going to be going over when I break down each one of these. Now, the first kind is a personal story advertorial. We've all seen these before. It is some kind of heart-wrenching story or a scary story of a failure that somebody had, or an inability to achieve a goal like losing weight or getting rid of joint pain or something along those lines. And what's going to end up happening in this is it's written in the perspective of somebody from a first person or third person point of view. And it's generally going to feel like a blog post or some kind of emotional testimonial that somebody's putting out. And it's going to revolve around a personal struggle, the person making discovery, and then having a transformation. So the general way that these are going to go is the person is going to be stuck in a low point. Maybe they can't sleep, they can't lose weight, joint pain is ruining their life. And then they're going to make a discovery. And this discovery is usually going to be a friend, a family member. They're going to talk to a rogue doctor who tells them that your problem isn't actually this, it's this other thing. And then this is what solves it. And then inevitably that's going to lead to the discovery of the product as well. And then once they discover and use the product, they're going to have this transformation. And now they're writing this to bring this discovery back to other people just like them to help them achieve success. Now, 9 times out of 10, these are made up. These are fake stories, but they do extremely well if you nail them. Now, when should you use a personal story advertorial, or like what kind of niche for? These are perfect for products that solve an emotional pain point like health, beauty, or fitness products. These are going to crush for these niches. I would say also like gadgets and things along those lines. A lot of those kind of health gadgets could typically fall into the health niche, especially like the EMF pads people stand on or the knee sleeves and shit like that. I would just kind of toss those in health. So here's a few examples of headlines from personal story advertorials. How I finally got rid of my back pain with this simple device. I changed my sleeping habits after watching a supermodel sleep on a plane. Kind of creepy. No, I'm just joking. Um, my date told me I had bad breath. Here's how I fixed it and why you should too. Bad breath may be a sign of other serious symptoms. Let's hope that my date never tells me I have bad breath. That would be a bummer. So the first tip for writing these is going to be to keep the tone authentic and relatable. I mean, as relatable as we can if you're writing a fake story. The next thing would be including a discovery journey to build the trust. So really what you're going to want to do to have that discovery journey is in the lead, you're going to want to really get into the pain points where that person was stuck, what they were struggling with, maybe even touch a little bit on some of the things that they've tried. Then that person is going to make a discovery. Once they make that discovery, they're going to understand what's been holding them back from being able to get the results that they want. That person's going to share something with them that leads to them discovering the actual answer to it. They're going to have that transformation. And so really you want to kind of build that journey and not try to rush it, because if you try to rush it, you're going to lose a lot of the emotional impact and you're going to lose the important parts of the discovery journey that really builds a lot of trust with people. Now, this is going to be the hardest kind of advertorial to write. These are also going to be typically the longest. And the reason that they are typically the longest and the most difficult to write is because you're telling a full emotional story. You're trying to keep the person's attention while also educating them and also selling them and convincing them to buy this product. So there's a lot of different things going on in a personal story advertorial, but they probably do the best job of scaling them. So if you can learn to write personal story advertorials for your brand and you do sell something that has kind of more of an emotional pain point, then this is going to be a great kind of write, and they're going to be longer. So when they're longer, you just have a lot more opportunity to lose the reader. But that is the personal story advertorial. Next up, we have the breaking news advertorial, and these are going to mimic a news article, and they're going to come complete with a headline that feels newsworthy or groundbreaking. So just like news does a great job of highlighting different breakthroughs or different things that feel very newsworthy and new to people and exciting, that's really what you want to mimic in this overall advertorials, but specifically in the headline, it's going to be really important. The three most important things in our advertorial are always going to be our headline, our hero image, and then the lead. So if we can get a really, really good new and newsworthy feeling headline that feels like it's exciting and it's groundbreaking, there's been this big discovery, that's going to do a lot for the advertorial. And that's what actual news articles and the news does a great job of, is they make every single story they tell feel like it is the greatest thing since sliced bread, when 9 times out of 10 it's just the same boring shit. So like I kind of mentioned above, this is going to focus on a product that's a revolutionary or a recent breakthrough in its niche. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, if we're being honest. A lot of the times we are just putting new wrapping paper around something that's old, and then we're giving it a unique mechanism of the problem and a unique mechanism of the solution. But you want to make it feel like it's revolutionary or it's a recent breakthrough in the niche that can really turn things around. And you might actually have a product that is revolutionary or a big breakthrough that is a big discovery. You just want to make sure that it feels like that when the person is going through and reading the advertorial. So when should you use the breaking news style advertorial? So it's ideal for products that are new, innovative, or industry disrupting. So maybe things have been done in the industry the exact same way. Everybody's put out kind of the same commoditized product, and you have something that is truly new. Maybe it's you use a different style of ingredient, maybe how you process it, the testing that it goes through, all those kinds of things. But usually it's going to have to be a big component of whatever the product is. So whatever it is, you just want to make sure that it feels new and innovative and industry disrupting. And whenever we're talking about industry disrupting, one of the big things to think about is sometimes in these style of advertorials, it's good to have kind of an enemy, right? So like in skincare or something along those lines, the enemy is going to be Botox, traditional treatments that aren't good for your that aren't actually good for your skin. It's going to be, the big skincare cream companies and things along those lines. If you're writing for peptides like BPC 157, it could be big pharma wants this ban. So you sometimes when it's appropriate in this news article style advertorial, you just want to make sure that you have some kind of enemy woven in there. So this is typically going to work really well for gadgets, supplements, and beauty. So here is a few headlines. Scientists discover a new way to boost energy without coffee. This gadget is revolutionizing the way we clean homes. Obviously, we can tell these aren't really exciting. Why aren't these exciting? Because I just literally made them up on the spot in 5 seconds. I'll be completely honest. So these are just ones that could be. Obviously, you can see a lot of flaws in these and why these are kind of dog shit headlines. But I just tossed these together before putting this all together, honestly. So I'll take my lumps on that one. So tips: you're going to want to use statistics or authoritative quotes to lend credibility, like a news article would. I actually recently just did this in one that I wrote not that long ago, where I quoted a kind of biohacker, and then I quoted somebody else that has a lot of authority with that audience. And so by using a quote directly from them that supports the other things I said in the advertorial, it kind of lends us that trust and gives us a bit more credibility. So what you're going to want to do is structure the lead like a newsworthy event. So typically, this is going to be some kind of big breakthrough when it comes to discovering something new about the problem that people are running into that they don't know about, or something that is a big new discovery around the solution. So typically, those are the two things you're going to want to highlight in the lead of a news article style advertorial: is a newsworthy event around the problem or the solution. And that'll get you a pretty good ways. And then I kind of mentioned this above, but don't make it feel too biased in like the first 70%, as that removes the actual news feel. So, like I mentioned, the good rule of thumb in advertorials is like 70% education, 30% selling. It's not an exact science. You can play around with that percentage a bit. But if you just go straight in for the sale right away, it's typically going to let people know, hey, this isn't actually a news article. So we want to try to keep that ruse up as long as we can with this style. Next up, we have the basic listicle. You guys have obviously seen these before. It follows the X viral reasons why headline and the angle, and then it's going to provide just multiple reasons or benefits that lead to the product as the solution. So these are the simplest, they're the easiest to write. So there's that, but they can crush, but I'll explain why not every brand should use a listicle right away. They're not usually the best one to write fresh out of the gates. So typically, these are going to be best for well-known brands or established brands. Like I mentioned, advertorials kind of move people up the ladder. I feel like listicles are great for well-known or established brands because it is probably going to be the last thing that pushes somebody over the edge to buy if they've already seen multiple other pieces of content or multiple other elements of marketing from that brand. And one of the big things about that is that because they are short and because they are punchy and because they are not a deep emotional story, you're not going super, super deep into the UMP and the UMS and all those kinds of things. These aren't going to create the strongest sales argument for a product. They can be good to just put out to test ideas and angles and different things like that. But typically, anytime that I've written a just straight up listicle, more often than not, I have kind of made it a blended one where I've made it a listicle where we give them the 5 reasons, but then I kind of below that have a bit of a sales component to it where we kind of weave in some of the UMP and some of the UMS. We go over why it's better than alternatives if we haven't done it in the 5 reasons above. And typically I'll have a section, it's almost kind of like a listicle sales page blended a little bit. But again, there are some out there that have been absolute killer advertorials. It got like $4 million worth of ad spend that were just literally 9 reasons why people love Kachava. We broke that down in a previous video, but there are ones like that out there. So this is going to be great for gadgets, skincare, or supplements. And this is going to be phenomenal for audiences that love easily digestible content. That's going to be kind of everybody though, at the end of the day. Like everybody's audience has their brain a little bit TikTok rot. And so we all are pretty hardwired for easily digestible content. So these can be phenomenal to kind of put in between some of the long form ones just to test them, maybe test an idea, get it up super quick. Because of how simple and easy they are to write, you can put out a lot of listicles and test them pretty quickly. Here's a few examples of headlines. 7 reasons why this pillow will change how you sleep forever. 5 gadgets every homeowner needs right now. 9 reasons people love Kachava. So here's the tips for this style. Because they aren't quite as text heavy, you want to include strong visuals and subheadings for each list on the item. You can use a lead if appropriate or go right into the list. Typically, I like to have 3 to 4 paragraphs of a lead just to warm people up, to kind of tease a little bit, and then get into the actual list of 5 reasons, 7 reasons why. That's just kind of a personal preference, though. There's been quite a few listicles that have smashed it, that have just been going straight into the list with no real lead at all. That's just more of a personal preference thing for me. I like to put a few paragraphs before we get into it to kind of tease them and hit on a little bit of the problem and the solution. And then obviously at the end, you just end with a call to action that ties the reasons together. So that is listicles. Next up, we have comparison advertorials. So this is going to be a review style advertorial that compares multiple products in the market. You're going to rank those products on features, pricing, benefits, all those kinds of things, with one product as the clear winner. Obviously, that's going to be your product. And spoiler alert, this is my least favorite style of advertorial, and I'll explain why pretty quickly. So if you have this style of advertorial, you are going to have to do a really good job of trying to not be too overly biased towards your product. And then what you're going to have to do is you have to make it feel authentic, to make it feel like you're not just trying to get them to buy one product. You want to typically list links to the other products that you're comparing yours to. So if you have this style of advertorial and it scales for you, you're going to have a inevitable certain percentage of those people that go buy your competitors' products. So you have literally paid to put competitors' products in front of your ideal customer, which just seems like a bad move to me. I've never really seen any one of these scale and crush it. People still run them a lot in the supplement space, but I think it's kind of a dumb idea for the reasons I just gave. So I am not a fan of this style of advertorial, but nonetheless want to toss it out there because it is one that I know that people still use. So it's best for competitive markets where consumers are really like comparing options, tech, gadgets, skincare, supplements, can do really well in those, really well. Here's some examples of headlines: top 5 skincare products of 2024, ranked by dermatologists. Which fitness tracker is right for you? Here's our top 5 picks. Typically, you're just going to want to present your product as the best choice without being overly biased. You can't really do that because it's your product and you're comparing it to everybody else's. Use a clear scoring criteria to kind of build trust. Again, I haven't written a ton of these because I'm not a fan of them. I think they're kind of a dog shit idea. And that's probably pretty apparent with the last bullet here. Least useful advertorial, in my opinion. So next up, we have our social proof. Now, social proof advertorials are written as a blog or a casual style, and in a very casual style, about something that has gone viral. Typically, this has gone viral, it's blown up, it's gotten super popular. So it's gone viral or it's become extremely popular with a specific demographic that has a certain problem. Typically, the reason that it has blown up is the UMP or the UMS. Something new, something unique, here's what it's doing. What ends up happening is somebody hears about it, they try it due to its popularity, and it helps them. So not really a personal story. They're not going to be as aggressive as a personal story style advertorial. You're going to use them when you kind of want to build authority and trust. They're good for gadgets, skincare, or supplements. And you're going to want to use trusted figures that can influence the audience. So typically, if you're not going to have access to somebody for that, like if it's not Joe Rogan or Andrew Huberman or something like that, a lot of the times it can be somebody that's just like the ideal customer that you want to acquire that is writing it. So you just want to have some kind of trusted figure that can influence the audience and has a little bit of authority with them, either authority from the perspective of people look up to them, or authority in the perspective of this person is just like them and they have achieved the results that they want. So here's some examples. I tried this popular new anti-aging cream, and here's what happened. This air purifier has gone viral for removing allergies. These bed sheets went viral. This one is actually from a advertorial that crushed, essentially. Like, it was around that. Like, these bed sheets went viral. They're selling out. All right. So here's the tips for this style of advertorial. If you can, include some before and after photos and testimonials for added credibility. You're going to want to write from the perspective of a relatable user, somebody that they are going to have some level of relatability with. And then don't show them getting results too quickly. That's one of the biggest things that I think people do. Is it's like, if you buy a product and they try it the next day and all their problems are gone, it's just highly unbelievable. So don't show them getting results too quickly. Make it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you want to be super crazy or something along those lines, because it just makes them a bit more believable when you show somebody actually having to go a week or two without getting the result that they want. All right, so here is our quick and dirty recap. We have personal story, breaking news, listicles, comparison, and social proof advertorials. And by choosing and running the right kind of advertorial, it can dramatically improve your conversions and lower your cost of customer acquisition. What I would recommend you do is start with one type of advertorial and then refine it until you have a winner. And one of the ways that you can kind of figure out what is the best style of advertorial is going to be a few bullets below. And it's going to involve kind of looking at your competitors and seeing what they're usually running. As you can see, skip the comparison advertorials. I don't think they're very good. And then how do you decide? So typically you're going to want to match it with your brand. If your brand is not super over the top, aggressive, direct response, usually personal stories aren't going to be exactly where I would start. I would probably start with more on the breaking news, get that dialed in, then move to something that is a little bit more listicle, and then maybe play around with a real and authentic personal story. But not every single kind of advertorial is going to be a great fit for every kind of brand. So what you can do is you can spy on your competitors' advertorials and see what types they're running and have a pretty good likelihood of understanding if their product is somewhat similar to yours, they're in the same niche, and they are scaling one specific kind of advertorial. That's a pretty good indicator that that same kind would work well for yours. So I'm not saying go out and absolutely just rip theirs, because a lot of the times that doesn't work. But what I'm saying is see what type of advertorial they're running, see what makes their scale, and then use the most effective elements that they're using and apply it to your brand. So those are the 5 different types of advertorials that you should be using for ecom. I hope this helps, guys. If you have any questions or if there are any topics that you would like to see me cover in the future in terms of videos to put out here on YouTube in the copywriting and marketing realm, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Adios.